2022. We'll call this meeting to order. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca? Ms. Buckner?
Here.
Ms. Cortez?
Here.
Ms. Ford?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Present.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here. All right, the agenda is approved by acclamation. June, will you give us a review of the old action items, please? Old and outstanding, more specifically.
There are several outstanding. They have to do with the transition teams and, pardon me, I didn't have that ready in front of me. And I'm looking at the overlay map between 2010 and 2015, and I was assured those would be, brought into the Friday packet, that they would be sent to the board on Friday, and I have that noted.
Gotcha, thank you. All right, let's move right into public comment. We've got 8 folks here to speak at public comment tonight, so we'll just go as I call you. Just come up to the mic and you'll have 3 minutes. Note that we don't respond to public comment here, although another avenue for you to get in touch with the district, and if you have an issue that needs to be resolved or an idea for the district, you can go to kcpublicschools.org and click on Let's Talk, and you can enter your information there, and the district does track those items. So we'll start with Mr. Jermaine Sales. Are you here tonight? There he is. Okay. All right, Mr. Sales, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Good. So a little bit about me. I'm been with SEIU since 2015. I'm with the SEIU Local 1 with the Kansas City Public Schools. I'm the organizer for Kansas City Public Schools. I just wanted to come up here to introduce myself as well as just talk about a little bit of what's going on in KCPS as I've been doing tours over the KCPS school district, hitting pretty much all the schools. I got a few more to go. But a few things that really crossed my mind was the staffing, and then far as getting equipment, far as when it comes to CNS. But other than that, that's all I pretty much have right now. But I figure I'd bring that up just to put it in the ear. But if there's anything, please let me know. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move right along. Miss Lisa Gooden, I think I saw you in the back there. There you are. I think you know how this works, but you'll have 3 minutes. Oh, hang on one sec, Lisa. I want to make sure you get your time. There you go.
I'm a parent of 3 KCPS students. I have students in a signature school and a student in a neighborhood high school. I'm concerned about the Blueprint 2030 recommendations. I am concerned that there wasn't more effort made to consider how these recommendations may perpetuate or worsen the racial and socioeconomic divide in our city. Knowing that the district is striving for equity, I was disappointed that MGT's recommendations did not include protections for historically marginalized communities and address historic inequities caused by the district. Many neighborhood schools enroll the highest numbers of Black students, Latino students, and students who are directly identified as in need of extra support through the CEP. For example, those families who may qualify for SNAP, are experiencing homelessness, or have children in the foster care system. In our district, we have schools that enroll less than 30% of students directly identified as a need through CEP, while we also have schools that enroll over 90% of students. This is not equitable. Neighborhood schools help stabilize our communities, and neighborhood schools need the most stability, yet only neighborhood schools were targeted for closure. Maybe MGT assumed families from neighborhood schools weren't invested in their schools. Maybe they didn't come to as many meetings. But now that you do have more engagement and more people are sharing their concerns about closures and disinvestment in their communities, I hope you are still listening. If we want to increase access to programs and enhance the student experience for all, it would make more sense to put IB, fine arts, and language classes in our neighborhood schools instead of maintaining separate buildings for these programs and students. Many signature schools enroll fewer students in need of extra support. Their students and families could also weather the stress of closure and consolidation. Separate buildings for signature programs are not accessible, especially when we have buildings that want to require standardized tests to gain access. Even UMKC no longer requires a test score because they understand that standardized test scores are not always the best measure of a student's academic ability or motivation. We should not keep operating our schools this way, separating out students with different abilities and different backgrounds and putting them into different buildings and giving them different educational experiences. Students should have the support they need to succeed in all of our schools, and they should have access to a variety of classes, activities, and opportunities in their neighborhood schools. It is time to push back on the narrative that signature schools deserve special protections to remain separate and remain open because of high test scores, high enrollment, or high parent engagement, because every parent cares about their child and wants them to succeed. And our neighborhood schools are the schools that accept and support every student every day. Please vote no on these recommendations, and let's pass a bond so we can renovate our schools instead of close them. I am not convinced closing schools will fix systemic issues if we do not change enrollment practices that allow some schools to grow while others are small, and allow for the expansion of some buildings while we have extra space in others. I'm not convinced the benefits of consolidating neighborhood schools outweigh the damage and disruption that closures will have on learning and on our communities. We must prioritize the stability of our neighborhood schools.
Thank you. All right, then we'll call Mr. Daniel Gooden to the podium. Good evening, Mr. Gooden. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Daniel Gooden. I'm a 12-year parent of 3 in KCPS, and I have a son who's a junior at Central High. I'm concerned with Blueprint 2030. The only bright points in this plan happen after school closures and are dependent on a bond passage, which we haven't managed in 60 years. I ask that you postpone voting on this plan and go back to MGT and ask for one that starts with a campaign for bond passage or an increased mill levy. I think the community deserves to see that commitment first. Central High's rookie robotics team earned a place in the World Championships in Houston this year. A handful of students, just a handful of students, and with remarkable teachers and supporters, won that spot over experienced teams that were 3 times their size. Every school in this district has a story like that. Our neighborhood schools are filled with excellent teachers and staff. Every school has dedicated and amazing students. This is who KCPS is, and we need to remind our city of that. In the recent meetings, I've seen an incredibly high engagement of people coming out in support of their neighborhood schools. Their voices are striking. They say, our schools are the heart of this neighborhood. What is a family going to stay for when our schools are gone? Who will move into a neighborhood without a school? They say, you are in our lives every day. You are the support that shows up every day. My family feels exactly the same. There is no more important local government than our school. KCPS teachers and administrators, they are the constant and daily advocates for our families. The metric for this blueprint cannot be financial efficiency. The metric for success must be community support. You are the most valuable government agency we have, and you can't leave the neighborhoods that need you the most. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll call Mackenzie Carlock to the podium. Hello, welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, hello. Hello, Superintendent, Board, and the community. My name is Lakeisha Allen, and I'm an active parent within the district. And I just wanted to address that the closing of Central High School is a form of racial segregation at its finest, forcing the students to leave their school and their community for the betterment of another race. And I would say that that's a form of segregation because of gentrification. Go ahead, sir.
Greetings to the board members and superintendents. My name is Mackenzie Carlock, the current student government president at Central High School. So not only am I speaking for myself today, but the entire student body at Central High School. Let me walk you through being a student in this school district and attending a school located in a different neighborhood other than where you live. If I missed the bus, I probably won't attend school that day. You say walk or bike to school, but gang violence is real life within our city boundaries. We can't walk 10 blocks south without issues, and you want to send us over 30 blocks south? How do you expect learning to occur? I won't be able to attend after-school events, clubs, or extracurricular activities. Southeast had multiple shootings last year after school. What do you think if someone from their environment sees me in their neighborhood? They will feel the need to get back at someone else, regardless if it has something to do with this situation or not. Adding to that, if inner city schools can't even attend the same sporting events or homecoming activities, and you want to put us in the same classrooms, how do you expect learning to occur? Hear me out. Closing Central High School and sending us out to Southeast will increase the violence within the school district and within our neighborhoods. You are missing the voices of the students. You are supposed to be here to service us and put our education first. You all are making decisions that control our future. So I ask that you include us in on the decisions. If sending me and my classmates into an environment of hostility is your definition of providing me a quality education, I don't want it. Lastly, I would like to invite the superintendent and board members to come have a conversation with the students you service before November 8th so you can hear the quality of education we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll invite either Sandra or Sandra, apologies, Days. Good evening.
Good evening.
You'll have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone in Hotep. Hotep means peace in Swahili, and I come this evening to speak in peace. Every day, the parents in KCPS send us the very best part of themselves, which are their children. We are to educate, nurture, love, and show genuine care and concern for the well-being, welfare, and safety of every child. This is what a school district is supposed to do. On Friday, October the 14th, 2020, my school, AC Prep Lower Campus, serving grades pre-K through 8th with over 430 scholars, were left in the dark for over 7.5 hours due to an awful car crash. True leadership is always shown in the midst of a crisis. Great leadership was shown by Claire Thornton Polk and Stacy Ragsdale Moore, principal and vice principal, along with the entire staff at AC Prep. We kept scholars calm, cared for them, and kept them as safe as possible under these circumstances. We used walkie-talkies for communication, cell phones, and flashlights for lights. We escorted scholars in the pitch dark because after a few hours, the batteries in our emergency lights went out. Our restrooms have no lights, no windows at all. It was a very traumatic for our scholars as well as our staff. Claire Thornton Pope, our principal, and the school nurse had to help with the lunches because we have several scholars that have allergies. Many of our parents and staff members are quite upset, and rightfully so. We did not receive any additional security, nurses, or counselors. Leadership did not come to our building till after 3 o'clock. We're a 4:15 ending school. Basically, we were left in the dark to fend for ourselves. And we did what we had to do for our scholars at that time, but some extra help sure would be needed. Someone might say, during our last board meeting, we heard about how children felt about going to other districts and seeing beautiful state-of-the-art schools. Listen, as a parent and a professor in KCPS, what hurts us more as a family at AC Prep is to know we have people that look like us, who are supposed to support us, but did not show up for us on October the 14th this year. That's what really hurts us as a staff, it hurts us as parents, and it hurts our scholars. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Days. We'll call Teola Powell to the podium. Good evening, Ms. Powell. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here today to appeal to you on behalf of Central High School. Central High School is the newest school in the district and was built for $32 million to be a state-of-the-art school for high school students. Think of the kids, you say to us. We say back to you, think of the kids. We realize that the district is in trouble, that something needs to be done, but closing the biggest asset is not the answer. We should be building on it, not putting it out to pasture. You talk about bond issues. Closing Central says you have not been a good custodian over what you had to work with. We are willing to work with you on ways to get students back using some of the same things it took to lose them. But closing Central should not be an option. The plan calls for closing, repurposing Central High School, and one of the reasons given is its location. What difference does it make whether it's in the south part of Kansas City or the center of Kansas City? You will be busing students, so where the building is located is not important. You say you have been working on this plan for 2 years, and where were we? Everybody is not on Facebook. You put this on the news, and did you not get a reaction? When you changed the name of our school to School of Excellence, we were here at the board meeting, and you didn't listen. Later realizing that we were right, it's been changed back. The rich history alone with alumni like Walt Disney, Casey Stengel, and more recently, Burnell Powell, class of 1965, was the first Black dean of UMKC School of Law. Just to name a few, just to name a few should be enough not to close it. In closing, I want to say, meet us halfway, and together we can work things out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Understood, sir. Yeah, the sign up has been something we have every board meeting. Yep. Okay, we're gonna keep the agenda moving. We have a really full night. I'll call Mr. Tom Love to the podium. Mr. Love. Welcome, Mr. Love. You'll have 3 minutes.
Why would you want to close a neighborhood school? A place where children can walk to, something that strengthens the neighborhood? Why would you do that? Think about it. One of the school board members years ago could not figure out why, when Hale Cook was opened up, that there were a line of parents. They had a waiting list. Their elementary school at 73rd in Pennsylvania, I believe it is, opened it with K through second grade students. And even real estate agents were excited about it. They said, hey, you can live here and your children can actually go to this particular elementary school. And the children could walk. They could ride their bicycles. And they are successful. It's not on your list. Why would you close a neighborhood school? Of all schools to close, why would you close them? It's the strength of the neighborhood. It just makes the neighborhood. I don't understand that. But what's happened is over the years, we neglected things like this right here, this administrative manual for Title I, for the federal programs, so that you're supposed to actually ask the parents of the children that are failing, would you like to have a reading specialist tutor them during the school day at no cost to you? That question's not asked. I know I went to 5 Title I meetings. You're supposed to ask the teachers, would you like your children that are failing in reading to have a master's degree reading specialist to tutor them during the school day at no cost to you? Of course. What teacher wouldn't want their children that 1 out of 6 students have some level of dyslexia around the country? 30% of inmates have dyslexia. These are at-risk students. That's why we have Title I funds. Do you know how many reading specialists were in this district 10 years ago? 6 at the high school level. They're supposed to be helped in K through 2nd. If you go to Olathe's Title I schools, and they have 10 of them, you're going to get 500 hours of tutoring before you enter 3rd grade. We've got 30% or more of these students that are at 1st grade level going into 4th grade and then breaking a literacy law that was passed 20 years ago. It's unbelievable what's been going on here. People will come back when you start complying with the laws and start thinking, looking at them. Read this. Parents are supposed to be involved. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Oates, I'll ask you to come to the podium. Good evening, Mr. Oates. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, board, interim superintendent, Dr. Collier. My name is Matthew Oates. I'm a KCPS alumni. I went to Kump Elementary, North Creek Elementary, Knotts Elementary, Lincoln Middle School, Passaic Academy, graduating class of 2003. I've only lived in this district, only paid taxes in this district, and was a former school board. 3 out of the 6 schools that I've attended no longer exist. So for my future children, those places are places I'll only speak to that are just kind of empty fields or maintenance buildings or an apartment. And that can be jarring to communities, and as board members, you guys have to respect that. But simply having those school buildings opening just for my own personal nostalgia is not the mission of this district. While it's unfortunate that our district has been here before on closing schools, there are lessons that we can take from it. Right sizing in 2010 was not an academic plan, it was a budget one. And to that end, it did accomplish its mission of resolving a $50 million deficit. But it was also super disruptive to our student learning and almost led to the district being taken over by the state. So in 2016, KCPS did the master plan, which was an academic plan. We had to learn from right sizing. We had to make some changes and come to the community again. Just like today, there was no deficit to resolve, but we sought to move funding from the operation of buildings to the classroom experience to improve literacy, expand extracurricular activities, electives, upgrade buildings and athletic facilities in exchange for reduced operational funding at 3 schools, including the former KCPS headquarters. So we made a personal sacrifice even as a board. The academic plan KCPS set forth led to a full accreditation. An example, that plan expanded AP courses to every high school at every grade level. What AP course could a freshman take in our district? AP Human Geography. What was the first MAP subject for the district to achieve status in on our path to accreditation? Social studies. Our kids will rise to the highest heights when we provide that for them. Moving forward, this community and board and administration needs to honestly evaluate our Blueprint 2030 plan to make sure it achieves its stated goals, its capacity to meet our academic goals, despite there being a national teacher shortage, making sure that we minimize any academic or social disruption for students at the high performing schools, especially as we plan to close them. This is no time to be engaged in wishful thinking. Being unable to accomplish these goals, no matter how well-meaning or lofty, will undermine the credibility of this district. So let's make sure we have an honest conversation on our way out. In conclusion, when I sit in these listening sessions and I hear people speaking on losing their alma mater, it's personal to me as well. A lot of it focuses on some of the memories we had tied to that building. An awesome field trip, going to state, in an athletic competition, a dope band performance, or whatever have you. And as board members and alumni, our focus shouldn't be that kids merely walk in the hallways that we walked in, but that their experience is as rich or even richer than the ones that we had. That's the sacrifice we owe to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oates. Okay, and now we will pivot to our District Advisory Council report and Miss Angie Lyle. Oh, there you are. Welcome, Miss Lyle. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you. I almost hate to go after all of these complaints about the Blueprint 2030 stuff, but I do have some things to say about Blueprint 2030 from the DAC, so I'll go on. Thank you again for the opportunity to give my report. For those who don't know, the District Advisory Committee is a committee of parents and staff and teachers and stakeholders in the community who come together to give advice and ideas and advise the district. My name is Angie Lyle, and I'm actually a parent at Lincoln College Prep, and I serve as the DAC Executive Chair this year. Our first DAC General Meeting was held September 21st, and we were delighted to see a lot of schools represented, a lot more than we've seen in the past. We received great information from our athletics department, who was on hand to share and answer questions about all the athletics from elementary to high school. We also welcome Dr. Collier and Board Member Jennifer Woolsey to share about Blueprint 2030 and other important KCPS announcements. I don't know if you realize just how valuable it's been to have you there, to have the parents see you and to be able to interact with you, and we really appreciate your continued involvement at our meetings. Let's see, we haven't been able to sync with Dr. Collier or Dr. Davis on our board meetings. I know that you guys have been busy, so I hope to get to see you soon. Wrapping up our presentations on that meeting were Tiffany Hughes and Shyla Lewis from the Office of Admissions, and they were talking about changes to admissions in our signature schools. As I mentioned in my last report, we extended our DAC general meeting for another hour to include special DAC business. I feel like I'm saying that word a lot. I'm sorry. During that time, we shared a letter from KC tenants to Kansas City Council regarding legislation being pushed at City Hall, which would limit public engagement when it came to economic incentives, and also would limit the need for third-party financial analysis when requests for incentives was made. After sharing that letter with our DAC delegates, we took a vote and unanimously decided to sign on to that letter, along with several other organizations. The latest news on that legislation, I believe, is that it was put on hold. I'm looking back at Kathleen, because I know she knows. In other DAC business, we let DAC delegates have the floor to weigh in on concerns at their school. It was an enlightening experience. Comments range from needing fresh vegetable options at their elementary schools to increasing security around their schools to several transportation-related issues. We made the decision to create a new committee, which we're calling the Transportation and Security Committee, and we've invited our DAC delegates to share a survey with the parents at their schools so that we can do a deeper dive on those issues. While we have invited parents to use the Let's Talk app, we're hoping that our survey may reveal any potential issues with how various things are communicated, including with the app. Our ask of the district is to help us to put a higher priority on our communications to our DAC delegates. We created our first survey over a week ago. It includes a link to new transportation survey and links to all of the Blueprint 2030 community chats. This email is to be sent out to all of our DAC delegates. As far as we are aware, we're the only ones at this point communicating with those delegates. The only problem is that we haven't been able to send it out yet due to a delay in checking our automated Spanish translation. I received word today that that was actually okay. We're going to send it out. You should all have a copy of that, hopefully by the end of the week. We're aware that the team's overloaded with Blueprint 2030 community chats. We're hopeful that we can develop a method that works in a more timely manner for our planned communications, especially since no one else is sending that information needed to give to the schools regarding the Blueprint 2030 community meetings. So basically, I'm sorry, I lost my point. Especially since no one's communicating that information, that's a missed opportunity for communications. Speaking of that communications piece, we can't wait to tell everyone about that new partnership with Positive Coaching Alliance, which was a DAC item from 2019. We look forward to hearing back from our school coaches about the programming and how they will incorporate it with what they learn at the school. You might have also seen the recent article in the Beacon by Maria Benevento from September 26, 2022. It was highlighting the ongoing push for DAC to get more parent organization and to get more representatives from all the schools involved. We invite you to our public school community meeting. Our next meeting is happening right here on Tuesday, November 15th, at 6 p.m. We've invited a representative from KCPS to speak here about security at the schools and to address concerns for transportation. Finally, to close, we're hopeful that more community chats will be planned for the first 2 weeks of November for Blueprint 2030 to get as many people as possible to participate. We would hope that there would be a community chat at every school, regardless of whether they're slated to be closed. And just as a side note, I am a parent at Lincoln Prep. We do care about those schools that are getting closed. We want to know what the impacts are to those parents too. So we would like to see those meetings continue at every single school, regardless. Many of our DAC remember that original strategic plan process and understand how we got to this place, but we can't assume that other people know that or how we got to this place. So we feel that it would be very important to make sure that when we're communicating, we're not shifting blame to enrollment. Rather, we're doing a better job of clarifying what considerations have been made to address the concerns that are being brought forward, especially with all of the things that we're hearing tonight. Okay, that's all I had for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ms. Lyle. All right, Dr. Collier, we will turn it over to you for the superintendent's report. Yeah, just real quickly. Yeah, so for public comment, you can sign up by contacting our board secretary, June Kolkmeyer, and I can give you her email address. It's JKOLKMEIER at kcpublicschools.org. And we have, or you can do board at kcpublicschools.org. And we have 10 slots for the one meeting a month, the business meeting, which happens at the end of the month. But for November and December, we actually just have one meeting in total, which is the case every single year. And so there's 10 slots, 3 minutes each. And then the District Advisory Council report is always 6 minutes when they speak. Good call, Dr. Jones. All right, Dr. Collier, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening. I'm going to start the superintendent's report this evening with an update for a couple schools. The first, as it states there, is Longfellow. Last week we had an issue with the carbon monoxide leak in the school where students were sick, became sick, as well as staff members, and they needed to be transferred to manual tech. And so I just wanted to take some time this evening just to commend that staff for their quick action. Principal Ballard, AP Smith, and the entire Longfellow staff, just for your work and for organizing quickly and making sure that our children were safe. And I also want to say thank you to the CTE leadership team and staff for receiving the Longfellow staff and students and helping with that ordeal. I also want to address the AC Prep situation with the lights that were out. There were a lot of things that occurred that day with Evergy giving us information and then changing. However, that is not an excuse. And so I do want to take this time to extend our apologies, myself as the interim superintendent and the administration, for the length of time that staff and students had to be in that building without lights. I just want to say that publicly. As it was shared this evening, that is something that we are going to address further as we move forward. At this time, we have a video highlight, and so we'll start with that, and then we have a couple other acknowledgments, celebrations for students. So we'll go ahead and move to the video highlight.
Hola! Did you know that over 30% of our Kansas City Public School students and families are Hispanic? And that percentage is growing each year. That's why celebrating the Hispanic Heritage Month every year means a lot to our district. This past month, our families, students, and staff have been participating in learning through the multiple celebrations that happen in our schools and our board of education commemorating Hispanic culture and achievements. Here is a little glimpse at all the Hispanic Heritage Month activities that happen at KCPS this year.
Hoy va a ser un poco diferente. Today's going to be just a little bit different. We're going to read a book in Spanish and English.
But that is not all that is happening at KCPS. Not only we are planning for the future with our Blueprint 2030 process, as we continue to engage with our community, families, students, and staff about the recommendations and the exciting academic vision for the future, there are plenty of other exciting things happening right now. One good example of the great things happening right now at KCPS is the literacy and reading campaign called KCPS Loves to Read. This month, we've had great activities happening throughout all of our schools that encourage our students to read more, focusing on the social-emotional skill of friendship. Let's see at some of the activities happening in our district as part of the KCPS Loves to Read initiative.
No one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke, your love life's the old way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear. When it hasn't been your day, a week, a month, even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you 'cause you're there for me too.
And if that is not enough, October is also National Principals Month. And Paseo Academy students have been going on a tour to all KCPS schools, serenading every principal throughout the month. Here is a little piece of their amazing performance for our principals. As we dare to believe and plan for the future of our schools, we continue to work hard to make an impact in the present of KCPS. We dare to believe that the best is yet to come.
All right, at this time, we're going to hear about our Si Se Puede art competition and the winners. And so coming is Marquise Hall, our manager of mentoring. I don't remember his position.
All right. Good evening, Board Chair Hogan, Dr. Collier, and members of the board. Once again, my name is Marquise Hall, and I'm the manager of Student Diversity and Inclusion Programs. And I'm excited tonight because I get to share with you the winners of the Si Se Puede art competition. Doing this right? Uh-oh. Okay. So first and foremost, we announced this everywhere. It was on social media. I visited schools. I talked to teachers. I talked to students. So there was a lot of announcements about the competition. And this was a district-wide competition open to students in grades K through 12. And this year, in fact, we had over 300 submissions, which is a lot. And what we wanted our students to do this year is to explore the various aspects of their identity. We wanted them to look a little bit closer at their heritage, their race, their language, their culture, anything that makes our students. As such, we also included a rubric and prizes. And so we evaluated the students' work on visual impact, their interpretation and creativity, and even tying it all to the theme. And then we are awarding 4 $100 Visa gift cards to our winners tonight. I know y'all don't want to hear too much from me, so I'm going to first introduce our K through third grade winner. She is a third grader at Garfield Elementary. Her name is Halima Idris. A couple of things that Halima wanted me to share with you are that her family is from Kenya. She's a Muslim, and she dreams of being an artist. In fact, she loves helping people, and she loves helping people learn how to become better artists. So without further ado, I would like to invite Halima to come on up.
I draw this picture for Si Se Puede because I want other people to know my culture and other cultures. So I worked on this Si Se Puede Si Se Puede entry. I love to draw and make art. I want to learn more about art. I'm so excited that I won the Si Se Puede.
Can I have Halima's family and anyone else here to support Halima up to the front to take a picture with the board chair and the interim superintendent? Halima, take this. I'll take yours. And then I want you to go right over to that wall. Right behind you. Go right over to that wall. Where's the baby? Congratulations, Halima. All right. Our next winner is Jayliana Rose. Jayliana is a fifth grader at Banneker Elementary. I got a chance to talk with Jayliana's mom, and a couple of the things that Jayliana's mom shared with me were that Jayliana loves to dance, she loves cooking, she loves animals, nature, and she's very good at art. In fact, her family had a cookie decorating competition a few weeks ago, and Jayliana's cookie was the best cookie. Jayliana, would you please come forward? You got it.
So I'm supposed to say my name first and then my banner, the school I was at. Hi, my name is Jayliana Rose, and my school is Banneker Elementary. And the reason why I drew my art is because my last name is Roses, and I think Roses is the most beautiful things in the world. Ooh, I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. I was gonna say something else.
It's okay. It's okay. Go sit over there with Dr. Collier. All right, Jayliana. Oh, Jayliana. Will Jayliana's family and anyone else that came to support Jayliana please come over and take a picture? Hey, come on. Oh, okay. All right, let's give Jayliana another round of applause, please. All right, and our next winner, you may recognize her because she was here this time last year, is Valencia Aranda. And Valencia is an 8th grader at Foreign Language Academy. I also had a chance to talk with Valencia's mom, and here's some cool things I learned about Valencia. Valencia recently got a tablet, and I learned that Valencia is really into digital art. And so her mom says she spends countless hours doing digital art on that tablet. I would like to now invite Valencia to come on up and share about her piece about Selena.
Valencia has generalized anxiety, and so this is kind of tough for her. Do you want to say something? She says her name is Valencia, and she chose Selena Quintanilla because she's inspired so many people like herself, because she's also an artist, and she's an artist too.
All right. If anyone came to support Valencia, please come on up and take a picture. I keep forgetting. You keep me on track, don't you? All right, let's give Valencia a round of applause, please. All right, for our high school, 9th through 12th grades, we have an 11th grade winner out of Northeast High School. Her name is Fatima Tejada. And Fatima, this is actually her 2nd year in the United States. She loves drawing. And in fact, she, while we were at Northeast a few weeks ago for their program or their assembly on Hispanic Heritage Month, she was actually in the Cinderella play. And last but not least, let me not forget, she is also a part of the RISE program. So, will Fatima please come on up?
Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm in the Northeast High School, and I'm a junior. I made this piece for the contest. I was so stuck with it. I didn't know. I didn't have any idea on what to draw about it. So maybe I took kind of inspiration on the phrase "si se puede." So yeah, it was like the background in there is based on one of the places that I used to live, that is like the north of Mexico, that is Monterrey. I really like that place because of the color, so I decided to draw in there. It was a really it was a complete challenge to draw that background. Yeah, I cried a lot with that. But yeah, the result was pretty neat, and I didn't know I was gonna win. So, thank you.
Yes, I have a certificate. All right. Will Fatima's family come on up and take a picture, and anyone else here to support Fatima? Teacher, principal, and student. I know all y'all are in the house because I've seen y'all. Come on up. Am I in the way? Oh. Do you want to join the picture? All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Let's just give another round of applause to all of our amazing students and the Si Se Puede winners. What awesome talent. At this time, we will move right into our policy monitoring report, policy monitoring 1.1, which is student academic performance. And so I'm going to go ahead and call forward Mr. David Rand and Ms. LaTanya Franklin for this report. I have one.
All right. Good evening. Board Chair Hogan, Superintendent Collier, board members, community, thank you very much for the opportunity this evening to share with you our academic update. In looking at topic and relevant policy, what we are discussing this evening is around Board Policy 1.1. This aligns with our Administrative Policy IL. If we look at the strategic plan alignment, this falls under Goal 3 and Pillar A, and this is also found under our Superintendent Evaluation under Quality Indicator 2.2. As we look at our key performance indicators, a very important one is our state assessment results. The official release of those will be in December. We also locally use our iReady assessment. Is a diagnostic tool that we give 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And also a big part of that is our annual performance report that is part of the Missouri School Improvement Program, which is new this year based on our last year's data as Cycle 6. As we look at history and previous context, our iReady assessment has been in place in school year 2018-2019. It replaced what we used previously as the NWEA measures of academic progress. We give that assessment at grades K through 8, and the reason that we give that and continue to use it is because it is very highly correlated with our state assessment and gives us the ability to project what our assessment results will be in the spring. Our state assessment is made up of the Missouri Assessment Program at grades 3 through 8, as well as our end of course exams at high school. And you can see the subjects and grade levels at which those are administered. Our end of course exams at high school are split between things that are required for graduation as well as those that are optional. Also, as I mentioned, as we are transitioning to the cycle 6 for the Missouri School Improvement Program, it's important to note that as a result of COVID and a lack of assessment data and using assessment data for accountability, we really have not had an annual performance report since the school year 2018 and 2019. The reason that the annual performance report, or the APR, is so important is because this is a big factor in what determines our accreditation. As we had that gap due to COVID and not having that accountability system that would allow us to show our progress to earn full accreditation, DESE agreed to come into our district to do a thorough review in the 5 areas in which they consider for accreditation. Based on that thorough review, in January of this year, KCPS was awarded full accreditation. What we have for our current status is based off our fall iReady results. On the left-hand side, what you are seeing is our reading results, and on the right-hand side, what you're seeing is math. The way that iReady, one of the basic reports that it gives, is it gives the percentage of students in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1, which you see represented here in green, those are our students that are at or above grade level. Tier 2, which you see in yellow, are our students that are about 1 year below grade level. Tier 3, which you see represented in red, are the percentage of students that are 2 or more years below grade level. As you look at this data on each side, the middle part of that graph is when our students tested at home. You'll notice that that data looks very different than the other 4 years. The reason for that is, again, our students tested at home, and I don't think all of our families understood that it was an assessment to just be done by the student. They might have thought it was just an assignment, may have given the student help, and that's why you're seeing the outlier for that particular year. As you look at all the other years, what you'll notice is that the percentage of students in each tier has been very consistent across the last 5 years. Although the state assessment results won't be officially released till December, our initial review of the data pretty much matches this, that we have maintained where we are in English language arts and a pretty consistent in math. While we saw a big dip in math the previous year due to COVID, we have rebounded based on our last spring's data, but not quite where we were previous to COVID. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Ms. LaTanya Franklin to share with you information around our curriculum instruction and professional development as far as what we're doing to ensure that we're moving that data forward.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. And definitely, I think it's important that we spend some time talking about what's happening right now in our classrooms. What is our current status related to the teaching and learning, specifically embedding our instructional strategies, but also looking at how do we improve student performance through the implementation of our literacy, math, and culturally responsive teaching strategies. So building on our previous work that we've done around proficiency scales and internalization protocols, we are currently implementing our literacy strategies through targeted specific vocabulary and opportunities for close reading that are embedded in the district curriculum. It's important to note that because it's not an additional add-on for teachers, if teachers are using the district curriculum, we are actually teaching those strategies to our students. We have our students writing meaningful definitions. They are engaged in activities that will allow them to learn new words, and they're learning the meaning of words and phrases that are used in the text in the classroom. Our current status as it pertains to math, our students are using the math discourse cards. You can see an example of that there. This is also built into the district curriculum, so teachers have it right there at their access. We are asking students in the classroom to answer questions not only verbally, but we want students to be able to write down their responses and also talk about their responses with their peers. They are also reading, collaborating, and justifying their thinking. Culturally responsive teaching practices, as you know, we've been working through our book study sessions. Our school sites have just completed chapter 3, which is about understanding how our schools will be partaking in their sessions around chapter 3. We just did chapter 3 with our principals around how culture programs the brain, and they'll also be learning about the culturally responsive brain rules. Most of the survey that we've received from teachers has been very positive. 85% of our teachers have said that the sessions have been effective or very effective. 75% of our teachers have said that many or several of the ideas that they've been presented with can be implemented in their classrooms. So next, I'll just highlight just a few of the performance indicators related to literacy and math, just give you some information about what we're seeing currently. So as it pertains to the walkthroughs and classroom observations, we're really looking at their Tier 1 instruction. Our team of directors and coordinators have conducted over 900 classroom observations since the start of the school year. They're noting that teachers are implementing the curriculum with fidelity and actually requesting that more visits occur so that they can share the teaching and learning that's occurring in their classrooms. We've also gotten positive feedback about the effectiveness and benefits of the professional learning that's been provided. I'd just like to share just a couple of short responses from teachers. This teacher states that I've been teaching for 30 years. Yet I've learned so much. It has been so helpful and perfect for what I do. I've used the phonics lesson plan in many of the assessments. It is some of the best PD I've had in many years. Another teacher shared, some of the things I took away from the training were amazing. The order of introducing letters and teaching letter sounds was beneficial, and at this point, all of my students are above 95% accuracy, which is huge growth from week 1. So we do want to not just say, here's what we're doing, but we also want to know and hear from teachers directly if they find this beneficial and what adjustments need to be made, if any. The third indicator I'd like to highlight is just the observations and looking at student work, because we also not only want to look at what teachers are doing, but also what does it look like in terms of student work in the classroom. So we've collected samples of student work by our coordinators, and one sample that I will highlight a little bit later is specifically from one of our ELL classes, and it's a beginning class, so we'll be able to see how that student is performing. So here we are looking at the student work sample and then some of the successes. So I think it's important that we talk about some early successes now that we've started the year. And again, just the positive feedback from teachers that we've received. Classroom observation data that's showing that we have full implementation. We also have multiple layers of support for teachers. We have our instructional supports that are implemented across all of our school sites, our interventionists, our district coordinators, our building coaches. We also have consultant support for reading and math intervention. And finally, again, there's the student work samples that we're looking at. So we really want to see that the students are actually able to demonstrate through their work that they are learning and understanding the strategies that are implemented in the classroom. And so opportunities for improvement is really heavily dependent on the development of our staff. We want to ensure that there are ample opportunities for professional learning. And so currently we have 124 of our teachers participating in the letters training. We have 32 teachers participating in 3Ls this year, and we have 42 teachers participating in numbers. Our goal is to continue to have teachers signed up each year until we have all of our teachers fully trained. But in the duration, we have other opportunities of professional development for teachers so that they're not just waiting for that training, but we do have training available in the district. All right, and finally, as I mentioned, the professional development, here's just a snapshot of what that looks like in terms of opportunities for teachers in addition to the reading and math endorsement, professional development. All of the learning is embedded in the district calendar. So there's professional development all year long for teachers, for coaches, and for principals. So the goal is to make sure that not only is the training and support being provided at the beginning of the year, but we want this to continue throughout the entire school year. We have training that's embedded during the school day, but we also have training that's embedded after school hours if teachers choose to participate. We've also built in training sessions for coaches and building principals at their monthly meetings. And Mr. Rand will come back up to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you. As we look at our future planning, what you see here are our main assessments that are coming up. Our seniors recently all had the opportunity to take the ACT for free during the school day at their school. That was October 18th. For any of our seniors that missed that, the makeup date is November 1st. This is obviously important because it gives our seniors another opportunity to get a ACT score on file that may be improved from a previous score, which helps with admissions and scholarships, as well as any of our students that are seniors that don't have an ACT score on file. As mentioned before, the EOC or end of course exams are part of our state assessment program. There is a fall window. Not too many students take it in the fall, but that's coming up in December. Our next iReady, along with our next interim, are when we come back from break in January. And then shortly after that, from late January to mid-February, our English language learners will take the language proficiency assessment as required by the state. The other big piece of that, as mentioned, is MSIP-6, our annual performance report, which ultimately will be used to determine our next accreditation after the school year 23-24. And that will be released on December 5th. Right now, it is set for only a partial release as the growth part of the APR has not even been released in draft form, which is a little frustrating because it makes it difficult to plan. In looking at barriers, obviously, if we're talking about December 5th for being able to report on how we did on the state assessment last spring, as well as our other indicators, that turnaround time is definitely a barrier for us to be able to use that information in a timely manner. Obviously, the disruption due to COVID has thrown off all of our assessment and different trend data, which makes it difficult to really analyze trends over time. And again, the fact that we are having an accountability report, although it's not going to change our accreditation, it's still released to the public. The fact that they're releasing a public-facing document on our performance from last school year, even though we don't fully know what they're measuring, is definitely a challenge. In looking at our action items or next steps, when the state releases our annual performance report, the state assessment results, and our report card, we will share that information with you in December. Obviously, that December meeting right now is pretty full. We'll put that stuff in a Friday packet and look at the closest opportunity in January or February so that we can share an update on MSIP-6, the annual performance report, and our report card. In February, we will come back to present again on policy 1.1, around student academic achievement. And at that meeting, we will provide our winter iReady results. We'll be able to show you progress from fall to winter. And we'll also be able to share information from our interims 1 and 2. With that, we are happy to take any questions that you all might have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Franklin and Mr. Rand. Questions from the board? Ms. Wolfsey.
Thanks for the report. Can you just, for me, I know we take iReady 3 times, fall, winter, spring. What exactly are you measuring in the fall? Are you measuring the baseline for if I have a child in 5th grade, everything they should know in 5th grade, everything they learned through 4th? What? Because I know it's a progress. Like we're taking snaps at a time, and I'm trying to just get my head around it again.
So yes, so the iReady is going to be measuring what students should know at that particular time, and it is a nationally normed assessment. So however our students performed, they're compared against all other students across the country that take that particular iReady assessment. While you can measure fall-to-fall growth, the main point of that initial diagnostic is to establish a baseline, make sure our teachers know where our incoming students are, as well as establish our growth goals for winter and spring.
So is it fair to say that I'm sorry, it's a follow-up question. Is it fair to say, like you just said, it's really a tool that we're using to know how we're going to address each student and what they need, their growth for the year at this point in time? Because if they're showing 2 years behind, I now know I have some intensive work to do over the course of a year, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So as our teachers look at that initial release or the initial testing in fall, it does provide them with the information. I mean, we give them all the data from where they had last year, so they have that as well, but it really helps them get an idea of where those students are and what growth they need to do to progress towards grade level. Because as we look at our students, if you're 3-4 years below grade level at 8th grade, it's not an easy thing to make that up in 1 year. But if our teachers know that, okay, in order for this student to get on track by the time they graduate to be on grade level, the expected growth probably isn't going to do it. Then we really need to push those students beyond the expected growth to meet their stretch growth so they're making that gain and getting closer to grade level.
Dr. Jones.
Thank you for the presentation. Sometimes we hear questions where people say, these kids have these particular scores on the ACT or on the SAT or the pre-ACT, pre-SAT, and some of the scores are pretty good scores. When we look at those same kids, sometimes when they take this state assessment, they're not getting a comparable type of score. Can you talk a little bit about what discussions are being had at the state level about, what are these tests, the state tests, what are they actually measuring, and why do they seem to differ from other, I guess I would call them other models of testing? It's just not adding up. It seems hard to follow why why we're supposedly having all these kids who are not proficient at a basic level, but then we have the percentage of kids who go on and take other tests and get admitted into colleges that accept these other exams. So I'm just wondering what the discussion is like.
Well, the discussions that we have and the discussions that the state has are two very completely different things. We have internal discussions that acknowledge the reality of the assessment, and I'll be honest, the state's not in any hurry to have those discussions. The way that the state assessment is currently structured, if you are in the top part of the basic category, you're actually on grade level. And the struggle is, ever since No Child Left Behind in 1999 through now, it has really presented the perception that proficiency is grade level. Here in Missouri, that's not necessarily the case. In order to be proficient on the Missouri assessment, you have to be slightly above grade level. And so as a result, what you're seeing as a national average on something like the ACT, like a 21, exactly like you're saying, you might see our students that are in basic, in the top part of basic, but able to be right at the national average on the ACT or another assessment. And the reason that it is a little different is because the state assessment is not norm referenced, it is criterion referenced, in which they pull together educators across the state and they come to agreement about what a proficient student should be able to do. And what they agree, what a proficient student may be able to do, doesn't necessarily match up with I don't want to get into too technical stuff, but how they statistically would norm a norm referenced assessment.
Ms. Buckner.
Before I start asking a lot of questions about iReady, I want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm looking at. So you're saying that the tiers are how many students are on grade level, not the amount of students who have met their growth goal?
That is correct. That is the data that we presented. When we present the academic wrap-up at the end of the school year, as well as the academic update in February, we will be able to provide you the percentage of students that have met both their expected growth as well as their stretch growth.
But this right here is just the amount of students on grade level or a year or two behind or more behind.
Yes,
Got it.
that is correct. It's a baseline.
Okay. With that, I would love to see this data by building, especially with the talks of school closure. I think that's an important part of the conversation. So I would love to see that. And then I'm wondering about building goals. Have those been set with principals and teachers? I know individually this is used in classrooms, but just like overall, like with our principals, are there like goals set for each building?
Yes, so at the very minimum, we would like to see the percentage of students meeting their expected growth to be 50% or more. As part of Blueprint 2030, we have specific goals both around those students that are meeting growth, those students that are below grade level meeting growth, as well as the percentage of students at key grade levels like third grade that are at or above grade level. In addition to that, we also look at how students finished last spring. And obviously, we really want to see probably at least a 3% increase in the percentage of students at Tier 1 over the previous year.
Can I just add real quick, just to make sure we're answering your question? All schools were required to set reading and math goals at the beginning of the school year, prior to the start of the school year. So we do have goals for every school.
Was it set last year?
Yes.
I would like to see if we've met the goal, how many schools. So I would just like to see last year's data too.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And then regarding, I appreciate you reading the comments from teachers. That's really important because we spend a lot of time, teachers are overwhelmed right now, and we spend a lot of time with things and tasks. And so professional development, if we ask teachers to engage, it's important that it's meaningful. So with that, I would love to see satisfaction data. I know you all administer a survey, so I would love to see that. And then also, I'm wondering if there is data that correlates this professional development with student outcomes. Is there a way that we're tracking that? What that looks like if we have it, and if not, what steps are we taking toward making sure that our professional development is not only feels meaningful, but it is meaningful in regard to student outcomes. Okay. And then lastly, I know I've talked about culturally responsive teaching in a strategic plan, and I just want to know like where we are on that. And I'm thinking about like when we're talking about Blueprint 2030 and this being a huge component of it, we need some accountability measures. And so what we have here is a great big picture vision, but I would love to see a strategic plan for this.
And we're currently working on that for you to have that hopefully in the Friday update. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wolfsey. Okay, well then never mind. Ms. Cortez.
So to jump on the train of making requests, when we receive the map data in December, and I don't know if you'll be prepared to do this in December or if there will need to be some additional time, it would be, I think, very illustrative for us to see the correlation with the iReady data. Because we make the assumption, and I know that the national data suggests that it correlates with the time out of testing and some of the upheaval that our students have experienced in the systems over the last few years. I would be very interested to make sure that we go through that step and that we as a community and as a board understand, does it still correlate and to what extent?
Yes, and we have enough data initially to be able to run that and be ready to provide that for you.
All right, Mr. Abarca.
Yeah, Mr. Rand, can you tell us when parents specifically talk about the challenges of their children constantly being tested, with the challenges of gaining data analysis quickly from state review tests, how valuable are these types of assessment programs, and how do we balance that with the challenge of over-testing?
So that is a very good question. And the answer to that is with any assessment, the value in the assessment is how much you're able to use it to determine how students are learning, what they need, and how you apply that information. So if you think about it in terms of what's most valuable, the most valuable assessments are going to be weekly assessments, daily exit tickets, unit assessments that are telling the teacher right away, did what I just teach resonate with my students, and are they mastering that content? The closer you are to instruction with those results, the more valuable those results will be. The next level of results would be more like our iReady or our interim. Those are kind of those checks that come in a few times a year, and they give you another idea of where your students are over a chunk of instruction that was intended to happen. But to be perfectly honest, once you move from Unit 2 to Unit 3, if you find out students struggled on something in Unit 2, it's much more difficult to wrap that into your instruction and to get students caught up in those particular areas because they're not matching what you're doing on a daily basis. You're having to kind of go back and scaffold. For our state assessment, I won't say it's the least valuable, but when it's almost like an autopsy report. It's already happened and you're finding out why after the fact. There's very little you can do at that point to affect that data in real time and to affect that classroom instruction. It's more useful kind of at a higher level to look at the district curriculum, to look at our processes to see, are there things or are there holes in our curriculum which have resulted in students struggling in some areas more than the other?
Thanks.
All right, Ms. Cortez.
So I asked this question in a little bit of a rhetorical sense, but I think sometimes some of the comments that we hear reflect maybe history, but not reality in our present time. Just want to make sure that we're clear. We have reading interventionists in every building to work with students, correct? And we have math interventionists in every building to work with students.
That is correct. Y'all nodding. I'm not hearing no sounds.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we make clear what, that in 2022 in KCPS, that we have those resources in every building, in neighborhood schools, in signature schools, to make sure that students who need support and progression have those resources available in every building.
Yes, that is correct. We do have interventionists in every single one of our buildings, and while they're not always funded out of Title I, they have been there and they have existed.
Ms. Ford?
Clarifying question, and it kind of double downs a little bit on the goal question that Ms. Buchter asked. Are there targets and metrics for all of the key performance indicators that we have listed here? Yes?
Yes, there are. In terms of our state assessment and the annual performance report, the struggle that we have is the state has not published exactly how we can get our points and what those goals are, which gives us a challenge between going through COVID, where we have kind of backed off looking at assessment and just trying to get through the day, as well as a transition to a new accreditation system that's already in place that's not fully complete. It's hard to have firm goals other than obviously we want to increase the percentage of our students on grade level. 3 to 5%, anytime you're talking about anything related to academic achievement as terms of assessment results is a pretty standard goal, whether that's proficiency, whether that's on grade level, But to be perfectly honest, we're waiting for that information in terms of how we are going to be measured on accreditation, because that's what we really want to set our goals around.
So then I would just say then it would be helpful for us in the future, whenever we have the data that's accessible, if we could also share not only what the indicator is, but whatever the target or metric that we've assigned to that KPI as well, just from accountability standpoint. I think that will be helpful for us to see what growth has happened, what goals we set, and if we actually met the growth metrics that we set for ourselves. Another thing is more of a comment. I think when we continue to see the chart that has the below basic, the red, yellow, green, it continues to be jarring. I know it's not new information, but I think we need to be really mindful in how we kind of receive and share that information. A lot of times it feels as if it's like, okay, we've maintained, this is kind of what it is, and it doesn't always read as if that sense of urgency is there. I don't believe that there is any lack of urgency in addressing this, but I think it's something that we definitely need to be mindful of as we are presenting the information that, yes, you had to level set and kind of tell us what it is, but just making sure we're just aware of kind of the tone and kind of how it reads as well. I think that's important for future.
Yeah, no, that's very fair and well received.
Ms. Buckner.
I want to make sure that I was following the exchange with Ms. Ford and you all correctly. And if I'm not, please just make sure that you correct me or clarify. I'm hearing that we have not set these specific KPIs, or they're not listed here, or they are, we do have them.
So let me clarify. So there are two separate things. Every school does a school improvement program in which they establish their goals for the year around our key performance indicators, and those are kept within the school improvement plan. What I was referring to is, as a district, since our schools aren't as well versed in the accreditation, that it's really kind of incumbent on us to let them know in terms of outside of that 3 to 5% that you want to see in Tier 1, or the reduction that you establish in your school improvement program in decreasing Tier 3, that as a district we should be able to provide our schools with very firm targets in terms of what do you need to do in order to be fully accredited on the APR. So I apologize for that confusion.
Thank you for clarifying. I think where was a pinch point for me is completely thinking about student achievement around this idea of APR. And I appreciate APR, I do, and we need it. But I'm thinking about why, the thing that I'm just putting myself in a parent's shoes. Why can't we make goals for our kids in our schools without the idea of APR, right? Why can't we just say that we want to push our kids to grow 5% in reading, period? So what would we do without APR?
So outside of the APR, in looking at our iReady data, based on your fall baseline, you're given an expected growth goal. So every single student in our district that takes the iReady has a growth goal both for winter and for spring. And so what I was referring to is more of a collective district-wide or school-wide growth goal as opposed to an individual student growth goal. But every single student that took a fall iReady has both a winter expected growth and a spring expected growth goal.
And so this can't be done on a district level without the results from the state?
Back to our expected growth, we expect at least 50% of our students to make expected growth. That is the very minimum.
So I'm asking, why don't we have this specific KPI? Am I not understanding? Can somebody clarify this for me? Do you understand what I'm asking, Dr. Collier?
I think, so the goals that I think you're asking about, what we use as a district are the goals that are outlined within the superintendent's evaluation, where we have addressed in there how much growth we expect around reading, around subgroups in reading, around math, around subgroups in math, and then there are some other goals that are not necessarily academic. We use those as our district goals because everything should align to what is in the superintendent's evaluation. from there, all schools, and I was waiting for one of the assistant superintendents, you all, this is your work, you can come up and talk about it. All schools had to set goals based off of those superintendent's goals to also align as far as reading and math, the same kind of, so I don't know exactly what they are for each school, but each school has them. So it could be, this was what our percent of proficient students were last year. We expect 3 to 5% growth, and should be this in the coming school year as an example of what they would have in their school improvement plans. But I'll let Dr. Harrison talk about it.
Yeah, we did extensive training on this last school year as well. Each one of our schools set individual school WIGs, which are our wildly important goals. And those are different for each school because it's based on the number of students that you have that are in those proficient or advanced categories, and based on your iReady or your math and ELA achievement data that you have. But then that data is even down to the classroom. Classrooms set those individual goals, and then students have their own individual goals as well, which they'll be sharing with their parents at our upcoming parent-teacher conferences in their student data notebooks, because students are tracking that information in their data notebooks as they're progressing through and moving throughout the school year. So they have information they're tracking on their ELA progress and on their math progress all the way through. So we have that all the way down, but it's not something that we could say this is your goal, because it's very individualized to the individual student, but then also to that individual population, because every school is at a different place based on the amount of students and where they're falling within that particular category of students.
Thank you. So the data that we use for superintendent evaluation, that would be helpful to have in a presentation like this, just that data for accountability and for the public to see. I think also it would be super helpful to ensure that the public has access to the growth goals for each school. So if I'm just thinking about the data that we need to really interrogate where we are academically. I was looking for, like, what are our goals for this year? Where are we in meeting those goals? And so that kind of data is what I would like to see moving forward.
I think what we can do is provide whatever the goals are that are academic for the superintendent's report district-wide and talk about that. We don't want to dive into, like, the superintendent's personnel, like, evaluation, obviously. But yeah, but providing, like, I get what I think I get what you're trying to get at is, let's just talk about what our district goals are, and for each key performance indicator, talk about the specific goal for that indicator. I mean, I had the same question on mine. It's like, by how much? Increase student, reading scores or whatever, by how much? I feel like that is sort of a little bit of a theme that we see, is it's always increased by this or decreased by, or it's not by this. It's just increase this or decrease this, and it's a little squishy, right? Hard for us to hold you accountable to a goal if we don't know what the goal actually is. And I think that's what we're trying to sort of wrap our heads around. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I believe Mr. Rand and others have tried to share that what you're asking for, we are doing, whether it's student, individual goals, but then also there are individual school-wide goals. And so what I hear you asking for is you'd like to see that, but they have indicated that we are doing exactly that. So we're looking at data all the time, and we're sharing those goals, as Mr. Rand stated, that if you move this percent of students to their anticipated growth, then it's going to help us reach our goals school-wide. And so we're also looking at, if the schools meet their goals, then that meets our district-wide growth goals. And we can get that to you so you can see what those are. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I will wrap up. I only have one question now. And it's really more of a comment, I guess. So slide 22 is around culturally responsive teaching. And so I heard the 85% say it's effective. It'd be interesting to know, well, for the 15% that don't find it effective, why is that? Right? So not for today necessarily, but I think you kind of want to understand, like, for the folks who aren't getting it or don't feel like it's effective, what are the barriers for them? So just a comment for future reference. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Dr. Collier.
Thank you. Mr. Rand is going to stay up. Our next presentation is enrollment update, and so he will be sharing that presentation with Ms. Hope Soriano McCrary. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Rand.
Thank you, Superintendent Collier. Once again, Board Chair Hogan, Board, community, thank you for having the opportunity this evening to share an update on enrollment. First, we're looking at our key performance indicators. These are directly from the superintendent's evaluation goals. And ultimately, where we are trying to get is to be at 15,000 students, K-12, in fall of 2024, based on our official September count. As we talk about our official September count, I think it's really important for our community to understand that there is a big difference between our official count and what would be considered our daily enrollment. As we talk about enrollment, it's pretty straightforward. We're talking about the number of students that are actively enrolled at a program, a site, or a building. That's the number of students you expect to see show up on a given day. The difference with our official September count is that we have a variety of sites, whether that be our contract sites or some of our special programs that do not have an official or not recognized by the state as an official school with their own school code, which would then allow data to be reported to that building. You can see here listed our contract sites in which our students are not included in our official count, and there's probably 120 to 130 of those students that you won't see in the September count, but are actually actively enrolled in our district, although they're being served in a contract school. In addition, we have a variety of special programs, whether that's our alternative school, whether that is our early college, evening academy, our virtual school. There's a variety of special programs in which they are not recognized as official school sites by the state. And as a result, those students are reported back to either their home school or their most recent school of enrollment. The reason that is important because if you go on the state website and you look up our enrollment, what they are reporting is our official September count. As we get to our school data, which is a couple slides ahead, you'll see why there is a difference in those numbers. And I really want to emphasize that because we have an increasing number of students that attend our virtual programs that are not physically enrolled in one of our neighborhood or signature schools. In looking at our official September count over the last 7 years, you can see by this graph that prior to COVID, we had leveled out slightly above 14,000 students. Again, this is just K-12. This does not include our pre-K students. After COVID, we saw a dip for the 2 following years, but our current count data for this school year is showing a slight increase. As you look at the chart at the top or the table, it is important that you kind of follow those cohorts. So if you start in the very top left-hand side, you can see our kindergarten students in school year 2017, we had 1,225 students enrolled. If you want to get an idea of our retention or how many of those students we keep, you wouldn't just look down at the next year kindergarten because that's a different group of students. You would want to go down one and over one to look at our first grade population to see how many of those kindergarten students came back the next year. So if you look at the example that I started with, kindergarten in the top left-hand side, if you go down one to school year 2018, over one to first grade, you can see there were 1,223. That's an indication that we did a good job retaining students because what you would like to see at the very least is the same number of students in that next grade level, if not more. As you look at this data, you will probably see the school year 2021 really stands out after having over 1,200 kindergarten students over a 4-year period. After COVID, we saw a huge drop. Not just at kindergarten, but we saw in pre-K as well, that a lot of our families with those students that weren't necessarily eligible for vaccines or boosters at the very beginning, those families were very hesitant to bring those students to school. You can follow that basically for any grade level, any year, to see how many students return that next year and tracking over time. I think it's important to recognize there are certain grade levels in which we lose more students, and there are certain grade levels in which we gain more students. Traditionally, from 4th to 5th grade, we do lose students as well as students moving into middle school. But what we also see is we have a lot of students return starting in 9th grade, where you can see, especially in the last couple of years, we have had a really large increase of students coming back to us for high school. So overall, it's not quite where we want to be, but after decreasing enrollment or flat enrollment for 50 years, to be able to go back up a little bit, while not quite what we would like to see, it's at least a step in the right direction. In looking at our data by school, as I mentioned previously, there are special programs and contract schools where those students are reported back to one of either our neighborhood schools or our signature schools. This particular chart is broken up by feeder pattern. You have the central at top, followed by southeast, east, and then northeast. Your elementary schools are in blue, your middle schools are in purple, and our high schools are kind of in a magenta reddish color. The thing that we're trying to present here is to show you for each of our campuses the number of students that might be reported back to that building. Again, this is really important for our community. If you go to our website and you look at a certain school, or I'm sorry, if you go to the state website and you look at a certain school and their enrollment, that count data is including kids that are not physically attending that school. That's very important, especially as we're talking about Blueprint 2030, enrollments, why we're closing schools. We really want the community to understand that there's a difference between students that are physically attending that building and students that are reported back to that building because the site they're attending isn't an official school code. So on this particular chart, obviously the first column will give you the school. The next column for off-site enrollment, that's the total number of students that are either in a contract school or one of our other special programs that don't have a school code. The next column you're going to see is the on-site enrollment. Again, as we're talking about the difference between count and enrollment, enrollment are those students that we're expecting to come to school at that site every day. The column where you're seeing off-site enrollment, those students have never set foot inside of that building. They're just reported back to that building the way the state does reporting. The next thing to keep in mind, in addition to enrollment, is our daily attendance rates. Because as we think about class size, as we think about enrollment, it's really important to recognize not just who should be coming, but who is coming. And that has a huge impact in the number of students that are in a building or in a classroom on any given day. And so we are giving you is the year-to-date attendance rate for each of those sites. And the next column is based on the number of students we're expecting to show up, the actual enrollment at that building, not the students that are at a different place or a different program. If you look at the average attendance rate with the students we're expecting to show up, that column of average daily number of students attending, that's basically the number of students that are in one of our buildings on any given day. Now, I fully appreciate, as a graduate of this district, my daughter is in this district, I love this district, I understand the passion of the community and the feelings around school closures. But when we're looking at our high schools and we see 315, 312, 440 students are in one of our high schools on any given day, and really the minimum ideal class or enrollment size for a building to be able to offer a full suite of courses, AP courses, electives is 800. When you're not even halfway there, the opportunities for our students are incredibly limited. And regardless of the passion of that building, how important it is, the fact is those students that are in there today are not getting the opportunities that they deserve. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Hope Soriano McCrary to share with you our plans moving forward around marketing to improve enrollment.
Thank you. We're not being very responsive to short people. So good evening. I just want to start off with a statement that any marketing plan, any successful marketing plan starts off with research. We contracted with Holsworth Communications to develop a marketing plan and to do some research. Some of their research included 26 one-to-one or small group interviews, 30 online secret shopper experiences, testing our customer service experience, an analysis of enrollment goals and projections versus our 2021 fall numbers, an analysis of all communications, marketing, admissions, and enrollment materials. A full marketing plan by Holsworth Communications was presented to the district. So some of our areas of focus, our focus is always to recruit new students, to keep our students in the KCPS family, and to attract back the students we may have lost. To recruit, we want to continue our traditional and digital marketing tactics, but we also want to include grassroots marketing. We want to take it back to the fundamentals, marketing 101. And we want to focus on targeted messaging. To retain, we want to work with our family and community engagement coordinator to develop meaningful engagement that promotes emotional connections to the district. We have to employ a district-wide practice of providing great customer service, not just at our schools, but through our enrollment process as well. And to win back those students that we may have lost, we want to highlight the academic offerings. KCPS offers amazing academic offerings to our students, and we want to highlight those. We also want to highlight the student life and the extracurricular activities that our students want to participate in. And most importantly, we want to be able to tell our own story. So some of the strategies that we'll implement to achieve those goals in those areas of focus is one, intentional targeting of our message. Two, we want to utilize brand ambassadors. Those are our current and former students to be able to tell their story and their wonderful experience that they had within our district. And we want to highlight the greatness that lives within KCPS. So taking it back to the grassroots marketing, that's that Fundamentals 101 that I mentioned, we want to increase our community presence. KCPS Security has volunteered to help us to distribute posters and flyers to our neighborhood brick and mortars. We want our community, every time they go to the corner store, to the grocery store, or to the bodega, that what they're seeing is KCPS. They're seeing their flyers, we're seeing our posters and those types of things. We want to be present in the community. And also bus stop adverts. We want to have our bus stop adverts on routes leading to our KCPS schools and those leading to other routes. We also want to talk about Get to Know KCPS. Those are community meetings that we want to have in all of our regions. So those Get to Know KCPS community meetings, we'll talk about several topics, usually not more than 2 topics at a time, as not to overwhelm anyone, but we want the community to join us and to learn about us a little bit more, but we want to take our meetings to them and not have them come to us. So we want to contact some of our pastoral groups, talk with our faith-based organizations, our neighborhood groups and associations, and of course we want to participate in additional outreach events. So we want to focus also on our messaging. We want to message that we have received accreditation, we will continue to be accredited, and we are proud of that achievement. We want to talk about the importance of education, early college academy, career and technical education are other paths to lead us to the finish line. Most importantly, we want to talk about attendance and the importance of attendance. Education options begin at preschool. And lastly, academic, arts, and the athletic programming and the student success. Communication. So we obviously want to communicate clearly and consistently with our families throughout the enrollment process. We want to develop an interest form. We can utilize this interest form at our outreach events. That would help us to generate leads as if in sales. And then we have to follow up to convert that lead
to an application for admission. Any questions at this time?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Questions from the board? Ms. Cortez?
Okay.
Hope you're ready.
Yes. So, one second here.
You want to let Ms. Wolfsey go?
Yeah.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So, part of what I want to ask is not in here. So last year at enrollment time admissions, we had some challenges as a district as far as a smooth process for our parents. What progress has been made in that particular area as we're going to be getting ready to, I believe, go into that time of the year? November, I think, begins to kick off enrollment time for specifically around signatures. So I just would like to hear what the district has done to address those issues that we had last year.
Sure. As I understand, the issues were last year that we had a two-part application putting the burden on our families. And so this year what we've done is that we've combined those. So we have one online application now. So we've removed that burden from our families. As far as signature schools, we still have the one application for them as well. They would have to fill out or complete their Infinite School Campus portal. And then once they are into the portal, they will select their signature schools. So most of the burden is on us now versus on our families.
So is that going to be, how are we going to communicate that to potential parents and families?
Communicate the one application?
Yeah, the difference, since they probably are remembering the old. I want to make sure that we're very clear in our communication so that the expectation is set of what they need to do to successfully finish the process?
Sure. We have some flyers that are being developed by our marketing manager, and those indicate the steps. And we're talking about 4 easy steps. It's the way we're marketing them in 4 easy steps. This is the way you would enroll, and especially for our signature schools, we want to make sure that they know that they will complete the one application, do their family portal, and then select their signature schools once in the portal.
So as a follow-up to that, just I know part of the issue was people just dropped off and we didn't. Last year, we maybe could have followed up to ensure that they finished the process. So is part of the plan for this year going to address how we, I think the best word for me to use would be shepherd people? Is there going to be a part, can you talk about that, I guess?
Sure. So talking with our enrollment office, what we've decided to do is that we're going to have automated responses every time there's an application that's completed. We've also calendared some dates 2 weeks in advance so they can work with my communications office so that we can craft messages of reminders, the dates that are coming up, and then actions that we need them to take. So we, and Charlie and I had this she's our supervisor in enrollment. We had this discussion about calendaring those dates 2 weeks in advance to give our communications time to develop that message, get it out, have it reviewed, edit it, and then get it out through email, followed by a text to check your email.
Ms. Cortez.
So to follow up Ms. Wolfsey's questions, which is where my first questions would have started, is our system optimized so that parents can apply using a mobile device?
I believe so. I will check with my, yep, you're standing right there. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I know that had been one of the complaints that we heard from the community about how challenging our system has been in the past.
We're working on all of those improvements. So we want to make it easy for our families. Even if the burden is on us, that's okay. It'd be a little bit more laborious on our end, but as long as it's easy and less burdensome for our families.
Do we have people testing the system from outside?
Yes. So we had some beta tests done. Shyla can speak to the groups that we actually used for the beta testing. We had to have 2 groups internal because those would be our signature families. You would have already had to be our internal students making applications. We tested that, and then we tested with, I believe it was our DAC, correct? Our DAC group as an external to make sure that our OLR is working properly. So we had to do some beta testing before going public with it.
Yes, we are testing this week, so we have used our DAC. We've also met with our Show Me KC schools as well. So their parent advisory, which is a lot of our parents, are testing it as well. And then we have central office staff as well as some principals and teachers as well that is testing the application. So it's one online registration, so it will be a lot easier. Ms. Wolfley, to answer your question, it will be a lot easier because this time, in the past, we had multiple applications, so admissions staff, it was hard to keep up with all of the applications that were coming in. This time, we'll have the 23-24 application along with students that are enrolling for the current year right now. So we'll only have those 2 applications that's in the queue that we'll have to take control of and process along with the school choice. But the school choice will only be for students who want to apply for a signature school. And that's the only way we can run the lottery. But it's not a long application. It's simply, like it states, school choice is selecting the schools that you want to apply for.
Yep, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. My question is just around what you make of some of the attendance data and your interpretation. So a few years ago or several years ago, I know we had some local journalists, one who might be in the room today, who did a study on just mobility in the area and how kids moving from school to school, district to district, that sort of thing, how that happened every year. When you look at the data around on-site enrollment, on-site attendance, and that sort of thing, and as Mr. Rand pointed out, how it fluctuates through as a cohort moves through, do you find that the reasons that we're seeing declining enrollment or that fluctuating cohort attendance, are the reasons the same as they were before? Are we still tracking kind of where kids go when they don't come back? What reasons they give for not returning? Just wondering if the reasons have changed or is it still the same?
No, I think because of COVID, the reasons have definitely changed. I think that it was a challenge in the first place for all of our families to understand the importance of coming to school every single day and being out of school for a year and a half where you're maybe participating, not participating virtually. It's really hard to get them back to, okay, it is important not just for your student to come to school 4 days a week, but every single day. And that has been a challenge. I think that last year, COVID still had an impact. But overall, I think it has shifted from it was already a challenge, and then due to COVID, our families don't feel that urgency around making sure that their students are at school every single day because they have just recently gone through almost a 2-year period where students didn't have to come to school.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think that's I'm sure that does apply in a lot of cases. I was just wondering, do you all track it though? Like, do you, for like year to year, not the daily attendance, I'm sorry to clarify, but more like a cohort that is declining, do we follow up to find out where the kids went? Are we still following up on that, or is that study period kind of ended?
So yes, no, absolutely. First off, in terms of overall attendance, we used to be around 90%. Last year, we were around 86. So far this year, we're around 88. So we're still below where we were COVID-wise. But if you're talking about students that just quit coming to school, we still have our dropout prevention specialists. Our graduation PLC is actually meeting here soon to do an initial review of those students to make sure that we follow up to find out where those students went and why they have left or why they have stopped attending. The other piece of that, I think, is really at high school. Again, in COVID, we have a lot of students that ended up transitioning to working full-time that maybe not had previously would have worked full-time, and they're finding that the money they make a lot of times and sometimes are more than their parents are making. And so to really convince those students to come back to school when they're seeing that paycheck is definitely a challenge. And I think that's why the administration has done a really good job with innovative things like Evening Academy and looking at other options for our students that decided that they do want to work full time. How can we support them working as well as make sure that we provide them an opportunity to get their high school diploma?
Ms. Cortez.
This falls into the future request category. I know that in the report on count and enrollment, we talk K-12. I think it's important that we also develop an understanding of where we are with regard to pre-K enrollment. So I would make a request that we get an update on pre-K enrollment, both in the aggregate and by location and pardon? Yeah, I'd like to understand the trends in that category.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the final question here. So question around just the one application. I know where you guys are headed with this. I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit ago regarding the workload that will come with that for the district, which is where the workload should be, right? It should not be with parents. But in terms of that workload, do we feel like we've fully tested what that will look like for our team in terms of the staff that's going to be required to actually do that work and keep up with it in real time?
Well, for the signature schools, the only work is they're actually going into the portal themselves and making that selection. So I think the lift isn't as heavy as you and I had talked about previously, but I think Shyla can speak more to exactly what that lift is going to look like and what the staffing needs are going to be for that.
So I think the staffing needs we have right now will accommodate. We recently hired a department support assistant who will just focus strictly on emails, voicemails. We know that was a concern last year that we had families that were trying to get in touch with us. There was nobody responding. So his job is just strictly just to focus on that avenue of the department, along with also processing applications. So what we're currently doing right now with our neighborhood schools is that each one of the staff members are broken down. They each have a set of schools that they focus on processing those applications. And so once signature school enrollment opens up on the 7th for our current students and then the 14th for external students, each one of our staff members will have a certain schools that they'll be focused on to process. Now, we'll all still be processing applications as well, but that way each member will be focused on their set of schools, and it'll be easier to track, what schools are being processed. Those secretaries, those principals can reach out to that staff member, if they have any questions. Families can go directly to that staff member.
Okay, and so that's helpful. Thank you. So I'm assuming then you don't have like a staff member that has the highest enrolled school and then another one that has the lowest enrolled. And so you've got this one person with a lot of workload and somebody who doesn't have enough. You've sort of balanced that across the team?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's bad. Yeah. So everybody has about 9 schools each, except for our department support assistant. He only has 2 because he focuses also on emails and voicemails and Let's Talk and other avenues of communications.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Abarca.
Thanks. Sorry, you get featured my kids because that's where I'm at currently. So my question's around, I hate to call this term, but kind of ghost seats being filled in the enrollment process. And my understanding is that students automatically get enrolled at the beginning of the year to help with some of the tracking. And sometimes teachers have a difficult time adjusting for the students that aren't going to be present or have transitioned out. So have we figured that out? And similarly, the same goes for students who maybe apply to multiple schools, and KCPS is sadly their last choice. And we start the school year with kids who aren't ever coming. So have we done anything to address those things?
So this year with the signature school enrollment particularly, we will be offering seats to those students on February 27th. That is ahead of the charter schools, because the charter schools are not planning, I believe, to offer seats, I think, of March 5th, first week in March, something like that. And we're going to give our families 5 days to accept those seats. one of the avenues that we're trying to do, or that we will do, to encourage our families to accept the seats and to start in August with us is to have the schools reach out to those families, to have a personal connection, a personal invite. I know, for example, with Paseo, she's having a acceptance night. So she's going to have all the students that accept her, are qualified and accept the seat. They will come to Paseo and they'll accept the seat. They'll get a T-shirt, get a tour. So we're doing different avenues to try to encourage our students to, choose KCPS and not choose a charter school at the end of the lottery process.
That's great news to hear. My other question I have is around kind of the pre-K transition or even the middle school transitions. Are we focused at all at those pinch points where we see students leaving our district and doing, whether it's advertising or direct engagement in some way, to make sure those students and families feel that there's a place for them at KCPS in the future?
Roundup to focus with the pre-K students, and then our recruiter, to Noah Foster, she has been going out these past couple of weeks to all of the elementary schools, and she's meeting with the sixth graders to encourage them, giving them options. Lynn, the marketing manager, created flyers that shows the feeder schools for the elementary. So each sixth grader got a flyer at their school that showed their feeder school for middle school and all the way to high school. And then she also provided them options as far as the signature school, so that they know their options, the performing arts, the Lincolns, AC Prep. So we're trying our best to focus on our students. One of the things that we're having is a family enrollment night. That way that we can reach out to our students first to allow them to accept the seats. They have their opportunity first to apply for a signature school. So we're trying to do a grow within to hopefully retain a lot of our students from leaving.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Dr. Collier.
Thank you. On to our last presentation. This will be a Blueprint 2030 update, and we're just going to quickly go through the history just as a reminder what this process has entailed thus far, and then talk a little bit about the engagement that we've had so far. Mr. Jesse Lang.
All right, good evening to the Board of Directors, to our Interim Superintendent, Dr. Jennifer Collier, and the Kansas City community. Just wanted to give a brief Blueprint 2030 engagement update. As you know, we're in the midst of a series of Blueprint 2030 public meetings. And so I'm going to play the part of Blueprint 2030 historian just briefly to get folks in the community maybe up to speed on the entire breadth of the engagement plan that's been in place for the last few years. This is something that started in 2019, so we're in year 4 of this planning initiative. And I mentioned the last time I was before the board, we had 18,000 touch points. That was actually wrong. That was outdated information. It's over 19,000 now, closer to 20. And what that means, a touch point, that means somebody attended a public meeting of some sort, they filled out a survey, they were in a focus group, or perhaps they were at a community meeting with another group, and that group invited us to come speak about Blueprint 2030 over these last 4 years. So it's been several different things feed into that. In the first phase of Blueprint 2030, that was all about assessment. So engagement-wise, that really leaned heavily on surveys, like we did the middle school perception survey back then at that time. We also had focus groups, so that included families who are in our district and those who are not in our district, understanding why people were making the choices that they are about where they send their kids to school. We also had student surveys and staff that were part of that phase. In phase 2 is where we moved into our goal setting. So this was our visioning exercise, trying to figure out where does the district want to be by 2030. That's where we had that goals and strategies document that we shared with the community. There was a Google document where they could go in and make edits if they would like, or suggestions. We also shared that with all of our teachers. We met with our teachers twice on this particular part of the phase. We also had 3 different sets of community meetings during this phase. We did online community chats, which that was difficult because we were in really the thick of COVID at that time, so it was all virtual, so it was kind of hard to get people to participate. So when we came back and did gallery walks with the posters around the room, some folks liked that because they got to come to different stations. Other folks didn't because they didn't get to hear what other people said. So we ended up doing town halls again, which is just kind of a different format of the meeting with the same information. In phase 3, we moved into scenarios. So this is our most recent phase that took place in the spring of this school year. Again, we had those community chats and other meetings that we hosted with the attendees that you see there on the slide. In this phase is where we really stepped up our reach to additional languages. So we recorded the presentations in English and Spanish. We also had all the materials available in English, Spanish, Burmese, Somali, and Swahili. So some different languages to be able to reach more of our families. So that brings us to phase 4. And for this information, I'm going to introduce our Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, Ms. Hope, to take over from here.
You don't have to introduce me. I was ready up. Thank you. So in phase 4, which is our proposed recommendations, we've had community chats, community and parent chats. So far, we've had 5 public meetings where we've had 485 stakeholders attend. Southeast Community Center saw 90 participants, Central High School 269. We had a virtual engagement opportunity and we had 59 people log on. Longfellow Elementary saw 16 and Northeast Middle School saw 51 participants. Some of the common themes we saw, questions and concerns regarding how our schools were selected for the closure or consolidation. Some other concerns were about the impact of the schools on the community. Some questions about our plan, what would happen if our plan would not pass, if our bond would not pass. And others were worries related to transitioning students to another high school away from their neighborhood. Staff meetings and Q&A sessions. So far we've had 10 staff meetings at the impacted schools, followed by Q&A lunch sessions, and we have 27 more scheduled to go. So, 264 attendees so far, and some of the common themes that we're seeing in the feedback is questions regarding the implementation of the academic vision. Will there be a duplication of staff roles and job security? Another concern is regarding the class size and the available spaces that are in the buildings. Our student meetings, I would have to say personally, these have been my favorite. Our students are awesome. 2 student meetings so far at secondary school, and we have 6 more scheduled. So far, we've had 36 attendees. Northeast High School and Northeast Middle School, that meeting was actually combined, and we had 23 students attend that, and East High School saw 13 student participants. Some of the common themes, and they were many, but I had to reduce them to 5. The students had a lot to say, and they articulated themselves so well. I was so proud to be in that meeting with them. But some of the themes that we saw was, will the curriculum be more relevant to what students need today, to be prepared for college and career? They were concerned about the safety, discipline issues, and available spaces in the building that would lead to crowding. They talked about transportation. They were going to have longer travel times. They need later school start times. Some of them expressed that they actually take their younger siblings to school and will have a hard time getting to their new school on time. So they talked about the concerns about the loss of their culture, their school culture, the legacy and the history that exists that they themselves are building for themselves. But they were excited about the additional learning opportunities and the extracurricular activities that may be available for them. Some of our online engagement can be found at kcpublicschools.org/blueprint. We have several recorded versions of our presentation in English and in Spanish. The Spanish will be available in a couple of days. Our meeting slides are translated in English, Spanish, Burmese, Swahili, and Somali. And the community can continue to provide feedback even if they have not attended any of the sessions. They can email us at blueprint2030@kcpublicschools.org. And our Let's Talk communication tool, kcpublicschools.org/about and contact us. Let's talk. We also have a survey for those families that can't attend any of our sessions, right? We still want to give them the opportunity to be able to express their thoughts, give us their feedback, and provide some input as well. So far to date, we have 42 respondents. The survey is available in Spanish and in English, and the QR codes will lead to each language. And some of the common themes that we're seeing there, they're excited about our facility renovations. Everyone wants a new school, right? They're excited about that. They're excited about the world languages and the instrumental music being introduced at the lower grades at our elementary. But some of the concerns are surrounded about our school consolidations and combining school communities, and they don't know what that's really going to mean for them. We still have a few more public meetings coming up. On October 27th, we invite the community to join us at Westport Plex Pod Commons from 5:30 to 7 p.m. On Tuesday, November 1st, we invite them to the Northeast Public Library. And on Thursday, November 3rd, we will be at James Elementary. On Saturday, November 5th, we'll be at Manual Career and Technical Center. We'll be there for 2 sessions. Our second session starts at 11:30 from 1 p.m., and that will be entirely in the Spanish language. On Monday, November 7th, we'll be at Troost Elementary, and we will wrap it up at Paseo Academy on November 9th. Any questions?
Thank you.
Sure.
Questions from the board? Ms. Buckner.
How were the students selected at Northeast and Northeast Middle?
The principals selected their students.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, well, we will move.
I was just gonna.
We'll go ahead and move on to, thank you.
Yep, I was going to say thank you.
Yep. Move on to the Board of Directors report, and we will kick things off, actually, not with our treasurer, Mr. Mania Barca, but with.
So you get no more peanut butter sandwiches and kids, sorry.
Right, yeah. With Miss Erin Thompson.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're into our first quarter, September 30th, of our financial report. As you see here, our budget is $332 million for expenditure budget and $325 million for our revenue budget. So far to date, we've collected $8.3 million in revenue, and we've had expenditures of $45 million. So our revenue is under expenditures by $37 million. That's why we live off our reserves. Our total local revenue that we've collected so far is the $4.2 million you see here year to date. State revenue is only $736,793. And our federal revenue we've collected is $3.3 million for a total revenue of that $8.3 million. Here's our pie chart showing that most of our revenue comes from our local taxes. And those, I think those bills went out today. They are due at December 31st. That's where most of our revenue comes from. Our expenditure budget, I'll start with salaries. Salaries and benefits total $29 million. Our purchase services, year to date, we've spent $8.2 million. And then our supplies. Let's go back to our supplies budget. We've spent year to date $3.9 million. Capital outlay, that's all our capital projects. We've spent to date $1.7 million, and our debt services paying on our bonds that we currently have, we've spent $1.4. So the total expenditure budget, we're at $45 million, which is 13.6% of the total budget. Here's our pie chart showing that the majority of our budget is on our salaries, on our people. We spend most of our budget on people in the schools. We have a total investment of $102 million. That's our treasurer's report for the month of September.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Any questions from
Thank
the
you,
board?
Ms. Thompson.
Oh. Did you have a question, Mr.
That was
Barca?
a thank you.
Oh, no, that's a no. Sorry.
All right.
Doesn't sound like it. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Appreciate it. I'm actually going to not go into ad hoc committee reports yet. I'm going to go to the board chair report for just a quick statement. I want us to wrap our arms around our family on the eastern part of the state. So you probably all have seen the news around what happened in St. Louis Public Schools, and specifically with the Central Visual and Performing Arts High School, which is sort of the equivalent of our Paseo Academy of Performing Arts. And a couple days ago, 3 people were killed, including the suspect and a young lady who was a student at the high school. And you know, our schools are supposed to be sanctuaries where our kids go to learn and grow and mature and figure out who they are and find their way. But basically, they should also be a safe place for our kids to go learn and do all of those things. And time after time after time in this country, we see these media reports about kids and families being destroyed through senseless acts of violence. And so I thought it would be appropriate for us to just observe a moment of silence on behalf of our friends in St. Louis. Thank you. And I believe the district and the board have sent our condolences formally over to them. And I know that some of the schools are looking at ways in which they can do the same. And so we're going to try to just pour ourselves into them during this time that's really challenging for that entire St. Louis community. Okay, and with that being said, we'll go into ad hoc committee reports. And if it's okay, we'll start with you, Ms. Wolfsey, with government relations.
Thank you, Chairman Hogan. In our meeting, I think it was last week, we discussed the upcoming renewal and expansion of the Jackson County Children's Services Fund. As a reminder, this is currently an 8-cent county-wide sales tax that provides financial support to organizations engaged in promoting kids' mental and social emotional well-being. Not only does KCPS benefit directly, but so do many of the organizations that serve our students and their families, which is why we are bringing forward tonight's resolution. Okay, Shauna, what? Read? Well, I have the whereas part. Okay, I just need a little direction. Board of Directors resolution, whereas Jackson County is home to more than 165,000 children and youth under age 18 years of age and ranks 75th out of 114 Missouri counties for child welfare, 32% of children under the age of 6 and 25% of children ages 7 to 18 live under poverty. And whereas an estimated 1 in 5 children between the ages of 13 to 18 live with a mental health condition, with 50% of all lifetime mental health cases beginning by age 14, and 1 in 10 high school students say they have seriously considered attempting suicide. And whereas when children are homeless, abused, and neglected, have witnessed violence in their homes, or are depressed, they do not come to school ready to learn. Many will act out in the classroom, disrupting classmates' education and diverting teachers' roles from educators to disciplinarians. And whereas since the fund's establishment in 2017, $84.6 million has been awarded in support of mental health and social emotional well-being of children and families in our community, including $475,000 in direct support to KCPS. And whereas to date, in 2022, $16.465 million has been spent to 102 projects across 78 partners, serving 63,827 children. Many of these partners, such as Link, Operation Breakthrough, University Health, Mattie Rhodes, Children's Mercy, and Cornerstones of Care, provide vital mental health support for KCPS students and their families. And whereas Jackson County Children's Services funds have helped to improve state rankings on the well-being of children from 86th in 2015 to 75th in 2020 out of 114 counties for child welfare. And whereas the tax that funds Children's Services Fund for support of children up to age 19 is set to expire in 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Education endorses and supports the passage of the Children's Services Fund by Jackson County voters on November 8, 2022, and urges KCPS employees, families, and partners who live within Jackson County to support the measure. I don't know if you need a formal motion to accept that resolution, or are we adopting? Oh, you asked.
Yeah, is there a motion to accept the resolution for the Children's Services Fund support? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Wilsey.
I have one more item. As many of you may know, in April 4th, 2023, we will be having another school board election. There will be 3 seats open at that time or up for election. One is at large, one is sub-district 2, one is sub-district 4. And so in preparation for that, the school board typically will do a school board school. For those interested in learning a little bit more about what it means to be a school board member. And so we have that currently set for Saturday, November 19th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I just wanted to also let you know some of the topics that we will be covering. We'll go over the public ed landscape, specifically here in Kansas City. We'll also talk about the roles and responsibilities of school board members and the policy governance approach that we use, as well as June, our board secretary, will cover the election rules and requirements, and we'll have someone there that will also talk about how to organize your campaign. So even if you're not interested in running right now, and you are interested in maybe considering a run in a couple of years, it's a great way to get an idea of what's involved. So we will be doing it in person here at the BOE. We will also be doing it virtually. So if you can't actually attend but want to participate virtually, you could do that. And we will record it. For those of you that just can't make it on the 19th, that will be posted on our website as well.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Wolfsey. We'll move on to Ms. Cortez for an update from the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. The Finance Committee met last week. Ms. Thompson helped prepare the agenda and walk us through a variety of topics. Probably the most important to give everyone a preview of what will be on the board agenda in December, which is our annual audit. We'll begin the process of reviewing the preliminary audit results at our November Finance Committee meeting. We will have a second Finance Committee meeting before the December meeting at which the full audit will be presented to the board. And that all is on target for completion in a timely way. So that's always something that feels stressful as we get close to the delivery point, but it sounds like we're in good shape in getting that information together. A variety of other topics that will come before the board for action in the future were kind of previewed, and I anticipate we'll see contracts related to those here in the next few months. So I will leave it to the administration to explain those to us as a board together at a future time.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Cortez. And now we will go over to Ms. Ford for our an update from the Superintendent Search Committee.
So in our previous meeting, we shared that the board was going through contract negotiations with the search firm that would be assisting us in our search for a superintendent. We are finally through that process. Our board voted on the contract tonight, and I will share that we will be using JG Consulting as the firm that will be supporting us in our search. We will be sharing that information on our website that we have created just for information about the superintendent search. And I will remind you that that website address is www.kcpublicsschools.org/SUPTSEARCH. So that is where all information will continue to be shared about the search on that website and in all of our future board meetings.
Great, thank you, Ms. Ford. And now we'll turn it back over to Dr. Collier for our regular business items.
Okay, we have 6 regular business items this evening. So the first is SPED local compliance. The administration recommends approval to adopt the model compliance plan made available by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in compliance with state and federal regulations implementing the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA.
All right, any questions? Seeing none. All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to authorize the adoption of the model compliance plan?
So moved.
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Okay, the next item is the Children's Center for the Visually Impaired contract. The administration recommends approval of the agreement to provide instruction and related services to pre-K and kindergarten students with special education needs in the amount not to exceed $854,000 for a school year 22-23. Children's Center for the Visually Impaired is a DESE-approved private agency.
All right, any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the service agreement with the Children's Center for the Visually Impaired?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey? Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Okay, our third business item is Victims of Crime Act grant, or also known as the VOCA grant. The administration recommends approval to accept the VOCA federal grant of $1,376,086 to support and provide services to students who are victims of crime in order to reduce the severity of the psychological, emotional, and impact of victimization.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the grant award from VOCA?
So moved.
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
All right, our fourth item this evening is Blue Cross Blue Shield of KC. The administration recommends approval of the group medical and dental insurance coverages as part of employee benefits. Estimated cost from January 1st to December 31st, 2023 is $24.2 million.
Any questions? Ms. Cortez?
Not so much a question, but really a comment. I think it's important for our constituents to understand that this is a zero cost increase renewal, which is a big deal for us and for the district.
Hashtag facts. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the group medical and dental insurance coverages with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
All right, our fifth business item is the Kansas City Teacher Residency. The administration recommends approval of the agreement to provide teacher residents to work with KCPS for a 3-year residency program at a cost of $62,500.
Questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am abstaining because I am employed by KCTR.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools to approve the yearly agreement with KCTR?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Okay, and our final business item is the Kauffman Foundation Grant. The administration recommends approval to accept the Kauffman Quality Enhancement Grant of $200,000 to support increasing access to high-quality early education for lower-income children in the Kansas City area.
Questions?
No question, but I need to recuse myself due to my employment with a Kauffman Foundation affiliate.
All right, any other questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the acceptance of the Kauffman Quality Enhancement Grant?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. All right, well, we'll move on to our next to final item for the night. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. All right, June, you have the mic. Can you do a review of our action items from tonight?
Let me save that or I've got to lose it. So I have 3 items from student achievement. All of those 5 I wrote down were really 3. So regarding the goals and the KPIs, the board would like a demonstration of how these goals are being met regarding percentages and what were the goals and where are they now. The second one is would like to see a correlation between the iReady and MAP scores. The third one has to do with teacher satisfaction data regarding the culturally responsive training. I'd like to see the data on that. And
Can I
yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm asking for the building data for iReady. I'm asking for our district goals, academic goals. And then our satisfaction data as in regards to our professional development. It could be the most recent district-wide PD. And then any data that we have, I guess the question is, do we have data that shows a correlation between professional development and student outcomes? And if we do, I would love to see it. And then lastly, I asked for, and I think this is on everybody's radar, the strategic plan for culturally responsive teaching.
Then I have one from enrollment. Would like to have an update of pre-K enrollment in aggregate and by location. I put by enrollment, but by location and trending. Okay, thank you. That was the last one.
All right, thank you, June. I appreciate it. And I think That is all for the night. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Appreciate it. We're adjourned.